What's up, Grace Girls? Welcome to the Allow Yourself Grace podcast, where we focus on helping Black women change their lives by discarding negative thoughts, pivoting in the right direction, and shifting their mindset through cultivating a trauma free lifestyle. I'm your host, Courtney Kristen, educator, content creator, life coach, counselor, and mental health enthusiast living in Houston, Texas. I created the Allow Yourself Grace podcast because I wanted to create a space for Black women to share their thoughts, feelings, and stories that make them who they are without fear of judgment. Allow Yourself Grace provides emotional support and encouragement within the Grace Girls community for women in need of non biased opinions from women other than family and friends. Personal development, self care, career, faith are among many of the topics we will discuss on this platform. Allow Yourself Grace podcast is here to encourage Black women to live unapologetically and thrive in being authentically who they are and were designed to be an entire vibe. No topics are off limits. We will cover it all. Now, grab a notebook, pen, sit back, and enjoy the
What's up,
show.
Grace Girls? Welcome back to another episode of the Allow Yourself Grace podcast. I'm super excited to have you guys back. It's been a minute, but we're back. We're back. We're still in the season. Hopefully, you guys have caught up on some of the episodes that I released. I have a guest today, so I'm super excited. But I'm going to start off with our quote. And our quote for today is: when you depend on someone to make you happy, you give them the same power to make you miserable.
Ooh, that's good.
When you depend on someone to make you happy, you give them the same power to make you miserable. Okay, guys, let's get into the episode. So I'm gonna have my guest, Miss Lisa Blount, introduce herself. She is a licensed therapist and a counselor, all around mental health enthusiast. Y'all know I love that for us on this platform. And so yeah, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Lisa Blount. I am, I guess, fairly new to the Houston area. I'm from New Jersey. I've done a lot of work. So my main thing is, like you said, I'm a licensed professional counselor. I do a lot of work in trauma, a lot with racial trauma, a lot of religious trauma, and my background actually is from did a lot of work with people who have been severely and persistently mentally ill, working in a psychiatric hospital and a forensic psychiatric hospital in New Jersey. That was good work. Then I decided that was intense.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to start working with people just like you and me.
Right.
And then just kind of segueing that into harnessing it to make sure we're focusing on our care, our well-being. So I do a lot of work to make sure that Black women are focusing on self-care, emotional wellness in general, just because.
Yeah, because we're not taught that,
Not at
right? We're
all.
taught like be strong, grow up, make sure you got your stuff together, don't
Yep.
depend on anybody,
Hold your
you
head
know.
up. Don't let them see you sweat. Work 10 times
Yes.
harder than everybody else,
Even on your days off.
even on your
Like
days
I
off.
saw my mom growing up, like on her days off, she would just go wash clothes and like I'm like, that's not really a day off.
The whole day
Like,
is packed.
right. I don't think we ever, really had a good example of that. So I love that.
Yeah, I think that's really, I just think that's a really important thing because the other thing it does is it leads us into some of the other spaces for our topic today.
Hmm.
But, but we see those things and we think that that's the way that things are supposed to be. So even
Right.
if we're like, it's a little piece of us that feels like something about this isn't right, it's so modeled for us and it becomes so familiar that it's just familiar. So it's like, this is what I should be doing. This is what
Right.
it should be, even when it doesn't feel right. And we have to learn to discern the difference.
Yeah. And I recently just had to learn how to listen to my body.
Yeah.
Because, as you get older, your body starts doing weird things, especially when you think you can do the same thing you were doing when you were 20. Like eating and just, doing all the stuff that you would do then. But it's like when you get over that 30, like 35 hump, it's like, okay, I got to start really watching what I'm eating. And, I may not be able to do some of the things I was doing the way I was doing them. and your body, like my body literally started to malfunction. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm like, no, something's wrong. And so just making sure like we're paying attention to that stuff is key too.
You can jump right in. That's like a super important thing to me because I feel like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people will be like, "I'm good, I'm fine, I got
Yes.
this, I'm doing it." One of the important things to realize when you talk about that, I say trust your gut, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we override it so much that we don't know the difference between what is external and
Yep.
what's actually inside. But the thing is too, when we're saying, "Oh, I'm good, I got it," I don't have that, I'm fine, nothing is, everything is good, I'm good,
Yeah.
smiling and doing all that stuff, it comes out in other ways. Now you snapping at your kids. Now
Mm-hmm.
your blood pressure is out of whack. People think like it's just your food. It's just the food that you eat. But
Mm-hmm.
if your cortisol levels are high, your stress remains high, it can put you at risk for diabetes. It can
Yep.
put you at risk for heart disease. So those
I'm a
things
witness, guys.
we say
Mm-hmm.
like, we thinking like, okay, I'm fine, I'm good, but it's coming out, it's seeping out in other
It
ways.
is. And you keep telling yourself, like, oh, I'm good, like she said, and you're not really good. And that's the same thing I told the doctor. I'm like, he was asking me certain questions, and I'm just like, well, I don't really know because I just been like, I'm fine, I'm pushing through. But at some
Yeah,
point, I was like, okay, no, this is not right. I need to go at least make sure that nothing's going on. And so I think we have to become more transparent
yeah,
and
and
vulnerable
honest.
and honest with ourselves. Like, I'm getting older. I got to start doing a little more to take care of myself, especially when you have stuff that is in your family that you've seen, like diabetes and high blood pressure. Like, you have to make sure that you're monitoring those things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because we feel like, oh, I can't get it. I'm not that old, but we're getting
Or
older.
some people feel like they have to get it. Like, all right,
Yep.
well, my grandmom had it, my mom had it. That means
Yep.
that
It's
I'm gonna have to get it.
hereditary.
Right? It's a hereditary, and it must be for me to get. But not realizing that if we're maintaining the same
Yep.
structure, like just changing our diet a little bit might help. But also, if we're in a toxic work environment,
Mm-hmm.
if we're in a toxic relationship, a relationship that is emotionally unstable and
Yep.
unhealthy, that's shocking our system, that's constantly putting us in high levels of stress, in friendships like that, and remaining in connection with family members like that,
Right.
we blood is thicker than everything,
Right.
and that gives, we think sometimes that gives people the green light to do whatever they want
Yep.
to do. I love that quote that you shared because it
Yes.
goes across the board for
Mm-hmm.
anybody. Like, nobody gets to treat you better
Yep.
than you have to set the example for how people treat you through how you treat you.
And you have to be your number one priority. But guys, we jumped right in. We jumped right in, but it just all of this is aligning with what we're going to be talking about today. But I kind of want to go back to you growing up in New Jersey real quick. How was that? What was that
um
like for you?
this is something I teach my clients. I'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
if this is something you can do, and I hope people see this too. This is something that I do under stress. Before I answer a question, I take a breath and I blow it out.
It
But
helps.
New Jersey is a great place to live. But when I think about growing up in New Jersey and right before I left, I was in a very stressful environment.
Mm-hmm.
And that it was just a very intense environment. Very good people that I worked with, but the environment overall in a psychiatric facility and a psychiatric forensic facility is just it's intense. So growing up in New Jersey, though, and I think about the good times, the mix of things. It was good. We had like a candy man. I don't know. Did y'all have a candy man?
Yes, we had where you can go buy pickles and cool. What are it called? Cool
Yes.
cups. Yeah, we did. We had that. Mm-hmm.
We had a man, Mr. Dang, that's gonna mess me up because I should know his name. I can't think of it. Mr. Phelps. He used to ride around, and we used to call him the Candy Man. He used to drive with a car full
Mm-hmm.
of candy. We could
Oh
buy like
wow.
penny candy from him. We had penny candy stores, but it was just a good place. Like the neighborhood I grew up in, most of my family lived pretty close in
Mm-hmm.
vicinity, and then like most people in the 80s, things changed and the structure of the
Right.
neighborhood changed. We used to be outside jumping double dutch, playing hopscotch and all kinds of stuff. And then the structure of the neighborhood changed because of, crack was introduced to our neighborhood. So a
Oh
lot of
wow.
things changed, and that presented a lot of different kind of issues.
So where'd you go to school?
I went to school in Trenton my whole life, and then I went to Trent High,
Mm-hmm.
um, biggest, best high school. Uh, but yeah, and then I went to Delaware State University.
Okay, Delaware State.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was determined to go to a HBCU.
I know I went to HBCU too. I think that's the best decision. For me, I think because I went to like a predominantly white high school that I was like, I'm ready to be around my people.
Where'd you
So
go?
I went to Prairie View A&M University. So I'm from
Okay.
Texas. I'm originally from here, and so yeah, my high school was all white, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to be, you know, immersed in the culture a little bit.
That's
So
so funny. My whole life, I went to all black schools, and I questioned whether I should go
hmm
to a HBCU. I don't know. It was the best decision I ever could have made because it was
it's the
like
best. I'm telling y'all, it is
unbelievable.
literally the best. I couldn't see myself going anywhere else than the HBCU because, yeah. And right now, I'm getting to work on a project with some of the alumni for PV for some of the athletes. And it's just so amazing how you can give back now that you're out. You see the purpose of giving back. Um, I want to talk about how you got into your field. What made
Okay.
you make that decision?
So my mom worked at the psychiatric hospital for almost 30 years. She retired from there and she said, "You cannot work here." And I ended up working in the same
That
hospital.
is
But she
so
told me
funny.
if I was, she's like, "You can't be a nurse. You got to be a psychiatrist or
Mm,
a psychologist." So I always knew. I got like interested in it. I went on a. We had so many amazing programs. I mean I had so many amazing teachers growing up. And I'm grateful. Like I look at people's experience now. They didn't have like a lot of black educators in their
mm-hmm.
classroom. They had the most amazing teachers who exposed us to so many things and just taught us things about our culture and things. And it was amazing. We had a program called oh gosh, now I can't even think of the name of the program, but it was a college bound
Mm-hmm.
program, and it was Mr. and Mrs. Morrison. They ran that program, but it was a college bound program. They did college tours. So
Mm-hmm.
we went. That was my first one of my first black college tours, and I never forget. I got the chance to meet Coretta Scott King.
Oh wow,
Yep, she
that's
sat in the chair
amazing.
just like you sitting there right now, like
Oh
looking just so
man.
like regal, like.
Wow.
And it was another doctor there, and I recently looked her up and I found out that she passed, but her name was Dr. Gloria. Why is everything escaping me right now? I know this lady's name so well. Anyway, she when she came on the stage, she said she was a psychologist, and I was like, she's a psychologist? I don't know if I had ever seen a black woman psychologist before, but she went up there and she said hello in 50 languages before
Oh
she said hello
wow.
in English. And the way she commanded the crowd and the things that she shared, I was like, this is amazing. Like this is the kind of
Mm-hmm.
this is the kind of impact I want to be able to have on people.
Wow.
So that coupled with the fact that my mom was like, "You can't work here," and
That's
um,
funny.
so that kind of like led me in the direction.
Okay. All right. What do you enjoy most about it?
I what I enjoy most about that. So I used to teach also. I taught for a few
Mm-hmm.
years, and what I enjoy most about each of them is seeing people when the light bulb goes off. When
Mm.
people are in a situation, well, for kids it's a little different because they're just like you can see them trying to figure it out, and then they get it. They like and the
Yeah,
excitement that
the
they have.
excitement.
But for women like me and you, and they're like, well, if I, so what I, and then you could just see them like that aha, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh shoot, like
Yeah,
I love that because for me it feels like a point of freedom. It
it
feels like
is.
what God intended for us to have.
Yeah.
Like this is the freedom that we need. So
Yeah. And freedom of the mind, like, is it's so like liberating. Like people don't understand. Like once you get that freedom of the mind, that means you're letting go of all those negative thoughts. You're getting some organization in your life. Like things are finally aligning for you and you can think clearly. That's the best feeling ever. The
yeah.
best feeling ever. So I want to get into our topic. Our topic is trauma bonding. So I wanted to talk about trauma bonding in relationships because we hear it a lot. People throw the word around a lot, just like gaslighting and narcissist, all those words people throw around. But I want to dive into trauma bonding because we see so many people leave relationships, and once they leave the relationship, they're like, "Oh, well, all these things happened to me," and people are like, well, "Why were you there so long?" And I think people don't really understand that trauma bonding is a real thing. And so I wanted to get a professional perspective on, first of all, what trauma bonding is and why people tend to develop these bonds.
Well, okay, so trauma bonding is a dynamic in a relationship where there's like it's almost like a power dynamic. So one person is a victim and one person is an abuser in essence. Of course, most people in a relationship don't look at it that way.
Right.
But the issue becomes that the person that's the victim begins to kind of idolize the person that's the abuser, and so they don't they see them as a person that they in a loving relationship with. So then, yeah, that's how that structure works.
Right.
So there's different elements to it,
Right.
but that's how that structure works.
Um, so I know she was gonna dive a little deeper. I wish she would have. Um, I'm gonna dive in a little bit. So she talked about them clinging to the person, like kind of idolizing the person. So when you have this person that you're in love with, number one, and then number two, you're like, but they love me back. You want to believe they love you back, but sometimes the things and actions and the way they're treating you is not really aligning with love. And people can see it from the outside,
But you
but you're
can't.
in it and you can't really see it. Why do you think that is?
So I think that's super
Uh-huh.
important because a lot of times we have friends who will be in a relationship and you're like, girl, just leave. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
They can't because what one there's a couple of different things, right? There's an addiction that kind of happens. Like that
Mm-hmm.
person um who is the, let's call them the abuser, but the person that's the abuser in that dynamic, they are like, well, you want to talk about the stages first, or you want me to say that first? Because
You
can I
can
start
you can
mentioning?
say it and then you can go
Okay,
back to the
because so
stages.
that so let's look at the beginning. This is why
Mm-hmm.
when I'm working with somebody, I always ask when was the last time it was like that, because a lot of times people are like, oh, he came, he had flowers, he was so nice, he met my family,
Mm-hmm.
he took me on trips, he liked my kids. When was the last time it was good like that? And then if you ask, people can't always recall. One, two, that person, once they do all those things, sometimes they get a person to let their guard down. So now you've wooed me into a relationship. I let my guard down where past where I
Mm-hmm.
would let somebody else, because sometimes people are in these situations and they're like,
Right.
I'm not gonna do that. So you let that person in past beyond, certain spaces, you become vulnerable to that person. And then that person starts to do things that are, they start to criticize or they start to put you down or they start to say these things and they kind of distance themselves. And then they may come back again. So even that becomes an addictive pattern
Right.
that people get caught up in and they don't always realize that they're a part of an addictive pattern. They're like, he just said he loved me. We were supposed to go get married or we were supposed to go on a trip and then he
Mm-hmm.
just pulled out and
Yeah.
then he came back.
Or now I have a black eye. You know what I'm
Or now I
saying?
got a black eye.
Yeah, and I think it's easier said than done because I read comments, on social media and all these things we look at, and people are like, "Why didn't you leave?" And well, why are you telling us you should have stayed? But it's not that easy. Like
It's
it's
it's not
deeper than that.
not at the point where you begin a cycle because
Mm-hmm.
it's a cycle. So
Right.
it's not like you met this person yesterday and they called you a whore tomorrow.
Right.
That's easy. You're like, all right, well, forget you too. I ain't.
Right.
But this person wooed you. They made you believe they loved you. They've gotten to know you. You've shared things about them. They're starting to use these things to
Yep.
make you to
Your
make you more vulnerable,
insecurities.
and then
Yep.
they start to play on your insecurities, things like that. But the other thing is, if you do have a friend who is in a relationship like this, the last thing you want to tell them to do is to get up and go.
Right.
Because if you know that they're, well, let me say, if you have a friend, they're in an abusive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because most people in abusive relationships who die when they're trying to leave.
Wow.
So we want to say, oh, get up and go, but it's really important that you direct that person. We have 988 now where people can call. You can direct them, help them find a counselor or a
Mm-hmm.
therapist, even if they can find somebody within their church or their religious organization that they can talk to who can help them plan that out. Because you need a plan. You can't just get up and go. A lot of times, I mean, it was an incident not too long ago at the Shell gas station where the guy
Yes.
got out and shot that
She
girl.
put a restraining order on him, and yeah,
He
he followed her.
took the police car and
Yeah,
everything. Like,
and yeah, I mean, and I think that's the first time I've heard a professional say it that way. Like, don't just leave
yeah, don't.
because people. That's the first piece of advice people give is like, leave. It's like, how? You have to have a plan. You can't just leave because, like she said, you can end up dead.
You could, yeah.
Like, it has to be a process in place. And yeah, now we have all the resources. I think back in the day, we didn't have any. So you had to just rely on family members, friends, anybody that you could to help you get out of a domestic situation like that. So I'm happy that you shared that. Now I want to back up because we were talking about she mentioned the 7 stages of trauma bonding. And so like she said, this doesn't happen overnight. Like this is something that happens over time because this person has now become part of your life and y'all have developed a bond. The bond has grown. You may, first of all, once you start being intimate with someone, you automatically develop a different set of emotions.
Yeah.
And then, let alone, some people have kids by their abuser, and so that's something else. And so all these things have tied you to this person. And so let's talk about this a little bit about the stages.
So I do want to say too. You said, oh gosh, you said I was gonna say I think
Mm-hmm.
that's why it's extremely important to get to know the people that you're
Yes.
with because
Yeah, and know their families, like kind of know their background. Because what scares me the most is when someone says, "Oh, well, I don't really talk to my family," or "I'm not really around my family." That's fine, but I still want to know a little bit about where you come from, who you are,
right.
like, because sometimes that can really open your eyes to a lot of why they behave the way they do, why they respond to certain things the way they do, and
I mean, because it could be way more subtle.
it
Like
can
it doesn't
be
have to be a situation where somebody is um running you down or trying to hurt you physically.
right.
Like there's subtle ghosting. Right? People will ghost you and they won't call you for 3 days.
Yep.
Then they call you, show up like, hey,
They're like, where
wait,
you
what?
been?
So it's
Where you
important.
been?
It's important because if you learn a family dynamic, then
Mm-hmm.
you understand like, okay,
This is normal for
this
them.
is normal for them, and do
Yeah.
I want to participate in that?
There you go. There you go. Because you do have to really like cipher through, is this the person for me? When you're dating, it's easy to fall in love with the flowers and the nice dinners and all the bright things that happen in the beginning. But it's like when you get to the root of the person, is this truly a good person for you?
Or yeah, it's
Yeah.
like he calling me babe. We got a special name. Like he call
Right.
everybody babe, girl.
Right. He got like 10 of you in his phone. Like that's the thing. Like pay attention to those little things. Okay.
so
First stage.
so love bombing. We talked about that a little bit when they kind of wine you and dine you. They treating you nice. They
Hmm.
telling you things that you haven't heard and kind of taking their time with you maybe
Hmm.
or they could be rushing right into other
Hmm.
stages. But that's beside. But they're getting to know you. They want to know about how you are. And sometimes we share way too much.
Ooh, talk
Sometimes
about
we got
it.
to really be careful about sharing our like what I dream to do. Like I want to be on a beach and I want to do and we go into these elaborate pictures. It's okay to say like I want a
Hmm.
partner that I can move along with, that I can build with and grow with. That's fine because
Right.
you can get you have to tell me what that looks like for you, and if that
Hmm.
aligns, then we can kind of figure it out. But if I'm telling you things like, oh, I like to be on the beach and I want to do this and that, and now he's taking you
Hmm.
to the beach. He's doing all these
He's
things.
giving you everything that you asked for.
Right.
Hmm.
Until but then but that what that does is it goes to the second stage. It builds that trust and that dependency.
Yeah.
So now you trust in this person. And if you are a person who you trust this person but you having like family issues or issues with friends, or even if you're not having issues with friends, they're coaching you sometimes or grooming that person to build a dependency on them. Like
Hmm.
you could trust me. You don't have to look at them. You don't have to go back to them. You don't,
Yeah.
or
So they're
it may
getting
not
you
even,
away from them slowly.
yeah, and they may not even be saying it like don't go back to them, but they're monopolizing your
Yep.
time. I
Yep.
just want to be with you. I just want to spend
Hmm.
time with you, and next thing you know,
You
you
haven't seen your family and friends
they're
for
like, where
6 months.
you
Like, where you been at?
been?
Yeah.
And what that does though is it fosters a dependency on it. It can foster a dependency on that person because now you're looking. Your family is like, well, where you been? What you doing?
Hmm.
Your friends don't want to hang out with you because you've been acting funny,
Yeah.
and now you're like completely. You start to become dependent on this person emotionally,
Hmm.
even or sometimes financially.
Yeah. I think that's the part people miss. Like, we automatically think that it has to be physical all the time, but sometimes it's not. It's those emotional bonds that we develop with people that it's like, this is not healthy. And I think, of course, the physical is easy to recognize, but sometimes the emotional things we miss
Yeah, it's not always
because I
as
don't have a
easy.
black eye, so nobody really knows,
Yeah, and
you
people
know?
don't think that's,
Yeah,
that's not that big a deal. You could easily move away from that, but you don't
right.
even realize it's happening. Somebody told me a story the other day where the person they were with was had didn't ask them. They were together
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't mind so much, but the person put their pictures on social media. They didn't ask him, but they thought it was odd. They didn't.
Mm-hmm.
They said he said he didn't mind, but he just thought it was odd that she would do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then she didn't. Then she then she said he asked for clarity on a relationship. She said, well, she wasn't sure and she didn't necessarily know she wanted a relationship, but she posting pictures on social media. So he's like, okay, well,
That is a little weird.
yeah,
And
and
usually it's the other way around. It's like the the man like not wanting the pictures, on there. So that's different.
and then she took him down,
Oh, so it was a post and delete.
and then she put him back up.
Oh God. Yeah, that will run him off quick.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
well, he was confused because he
Yeah.
was into her, and
Ah.
he's trying to get clarity on a relationship, but all the while she's telling him. So this is the gaslighting, right? She's telling him, I don't know if I want a relationship, but you're doing things that people in a relationship
You
do.
do.
Like people who not in relationships don't post
Just
pictures of
pick.
them on a date out on social
Yeah.
media. Well, they may, but you shouldn't.
They won't post the face. Let's say that because we see a lot of faceless, just the hands or
Or
something
something
like
like, I
that.
mean, you
Yeah.
might say I went on a date, but just like I'm posting like we in a
Yeah.
relationship to give people the perception of a relationship, but I'm
Right.
telling you that I don't want a relationship. That's a sign that you just want to watch
That
out for.
yeah, that is gaslighting. Like, don't do that to somebody. And I have men who watch my podcast as well, and so sometimes I focus on the ladies, but it's like sometimes our ladies be doing foul stuff out here. And so it can be men too. So we're not only talking about women with this trauma bonding, it can also be men being, the victim.
Manipulated and
Yeah.
gaslit. Yep.
Yep, they're not always the abuser. So I just want to make that clear. Sometimes it's females, and because I always try not to be biased, okay? Because ladies, sometimes we be doing some things we know we be wrong for.
Well, I know we love now, we love the term narcissism.
Oh
He was a
my
narcissist. He
God,
was a narcissist.
yes.
The reality is, though, narcissistic personality disorder is a clinical disorder. We can't
Mm-hmm.
diagnose people with that, but we
Right.
can say that we all have some traits of narcissism.
And we do. And we all do because we all want things our way. Um,
When we talk about like a person who is
mm-hmm.
narcissistic in a relationship, they do some of the same things. You see the gaslighting,
Right.
you see the idealization. First of all, the
Yep.
idealization, like, oh baby, I love you, you're the best. I never met nobody like you before.
Yes, I am.
And then they start to you get to a stage where they start to criticize. Oh
Mm-hmm.
well, can you do it a little? You just said you ain't never met nobody like me. I'm the best that ever did it, and
Mm-hmm.
now you want to change everything that I'm doing. But then so that criticism stage is like is a part is a way to tear somebody down. So when we
Yep.
talk about why people stay in relationships like this, their self-esteem is being eroded. It's being
Mm-hmm.
attacked and they may not even realize it. Like, oh well, I like the way you made this, but can you do it like that? Or
Yep.
you know what, I used to like when you wore that dress, but now it's a little bit it's a
Mm-hmm.
little too big or it's a little too snug or whatever. Just ways to snip away at a person's so it's going back to
Self-esteem.
this quote. I love that quote.
Yeah. Yeah. That quote is when I read it, I was like, oh, this the one for the episode right here. Because you don't realize that the things that make you happy can also bring you to a very low place. And you have to find that balance, especially in relationships when you're dealing with, especially if you're single and you're dating,
Yeah.
because you're dealing with like multiple personalities. And so you have to be careful with who is into you, but you're not into them. Because
Yeah.
that's the thing too. Because I remember when I was single and I'm dating, it's like sometimes you have men who are into you and you're not really into them. Maybe you're like going out to, and you're just really just trying to see, but I'm not into you, like into you. And I always say those people fall in love quick. And so those people you that fall in love quickly, those are the people you have to be like, okay, hold on. Because you don't want to lead a person on
Yeah.
that's already kind of in that space of,
We ain't going no further than this
yeah,
anyway.
right. You got to be very careful with that. And I think a lot of women, they take advantage of it instead of like backing off. They're like, oh, well, can you do this? Can you do that? And then you have this guy who's doing everything, but you're still dating other people. And then it becomes a problem.
Yeah. Well, and it's also what part of it is the other part that's a problem is that we are socialized to be nice, to be
Yes.
kind, and to if we're advocating for ourselves or if we're saying, hey, wait, I don't, this is
Mm-hmm.
about as far as it can go. Oh, she nasty. She was this,
Yep.
she was that. So then we
Yep.
become like, oh, I don't want to tell them. I don't want to say, but we have to begin to implement firm boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our what aligns with our values.
Right.
Sometimes I ask people like, "What are your values?" or "What do you value?" and we can't always answer. It's like, I don't know. Like, really, what's important? What's important to you? What do you
Yeah.
value?
You know why? Because people struggle with sitting with themselves. And, when you're forced to be alone with yourself, you start to think about what do I really want? Like, what makes me happy? What brings me peace? But unfortunately, there's a number of people that they don't find time to do that. They don't want to do that. I think it scares them. Maybe they have this fear of really, really giving themselves what they want because they've been spending so much time trying to make someone else happy,
Yeah.
or they're trying to do for everybody but themselves, or they feel like, oh, I don't have the time, or they don't make the time, because sometimes I know I've had moms on here, I'm like, they get up a little bit earlier than their husband, their kids, just to have those
Yep.
30
Before the
minutes
house get moving,
before the
that's what
house gets moving.
us.
Yes. And so that takes effort and time. And I think people just don't want to put that in. And so unfortunately, you have a number of people who will never know what they really want. They don't know what they value. They don't have any values. They're just kind of lost. And so I think that's where therapy comes in, because now I can come here, I can talk to a person who's non biased, a person who knows nothing about me other than what I put on this paper. I'm saying that from experience, other than what I put on this
No, it's
paper.
true though.
And, they're kind of analyzing me based off of what I'm telling them, and they can give me a plan that I can implement and put into action. I think that's key. So, in the Black community for so long, therapy was a thing of like, what is
You
that?
don't
That's
need
for white
that.
people.
Yeah.
We've heard so many different things, guys. And now we're in a space where it's becoming a norm and it's like a thing. And so I love that for us because that means we're becoming healthier as a community. And I think we just have to continue to advocate for it. And so I wanted you to go into a little bit about why therapy is important.
One of the reasons why therapy is important is because one of the what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
People, for some people, it's completely normal to wake up the same time your kids wake up, or to wake up your kids waking you up,
Mm-hmm.
and not realizing how important a routine is. So one of the things that I push is self love and self compassion because I just feel like as Black women, we are just pushed to a limit. We are pushed to the limit.
Yep.
We are taught like work 10 times harder than everybody else, or at least twice as hard, and you get half to pay. And be
Yep.
okay with it too. Be grateful for what you do get. Don't ask for
Don't
more.
forget
Don't
about
seem like you
that.
being too greedy.
Because money ain't everything.
Money ain't
We done
everything, and
heard
you don't want
that.
to seem ungrateful.
You don't want to seem like it's all about money. But yeah, therapy is, like she said, it's something that I think everybody should seek. Because you can think you have all the answers, but sometimes that person can come in, especially from a professional standpoint, and just be like, hey, and your light bulb pops on. And it's like, oh, I would never would have thought about that.
And
Um,
it's also it gives you clarification for
yeah.
a lot of things, like you said. I never would have thought about it, or things that just seem so natural
Mm-hmm.
because this is the way that it's always been done. You think that Pastor Philip Godot one time. Well, I'm sure this story is around everywhere. It's just where I remember him saying it. He was talking about how there was a grandmother used to cut the ends off the meat when she made off the ham or something when she made it. She put it in the pan. And so her daughter ended up doing the same thing. So the granddaughter finally asked, like, why are you cutting the ends off? I don't know why I cut the ends off. That's just what my
Yeah.
mom did. So, okay, well, let me cut the ends off too. So finally the next one comes along. She like, oh, I just cut the ends off. She asked the great grandmother, I just cut the ends off because the pan I had wasn't big enough to fit the whole thing in there.
Wow.
So we do these things and they seem like they just a great thing to do. We should just do it because the person before us did it, but we don't realize that there might be some unhealthy patterns in it. There may be some
Yeah.
things that just don't serve you. Even if they're not the most unhealthy things, they just simply don't serve you. And we need to make different choices or different decisions that could give us better outcomes to what we want. To find relief, because sometimes we think that we know, but we really we don't have the full idea of or we're not able to articulate all the things that we're experiencing. I had a client earlier this week who was saying, I don't know what anxiety feels like. So I'm asking people, I ask people in therapy, I'm like, well, have you experienced trauma? No. Well, okay, well tell me tell me about where you grew up or how what it was like. Well, my dad was arrested after he almost killed my mom. And then I couldn't live with my mom after that. I had to go live with my grandma, but then my grandmother and my grandfather, they got
Trauma.
divorced and then I had to go live with somebody else. You're like,
Yeah, there
wait,
it
you
is.
just said no.
Yep.
And then even if it's just being a black woman in America, like
Yep.
the things that we have to do, like and when I was in high school, I could have never worn my hair like this to a job
Right.
interview.
Nope.
God forbid I had nappy hair and color too. Like she is way too
Yeah.
ethnic, way too out here. We get labeled as out there. We get labeled as too loud. Let us wear some pink hair. We
And
gonna
our
get judged to the
nails,
max. Oh yeah, your
if
nails.
they're not white, you know.
But then let and I love her. What's her name with the green hair?
What color?
The green hair.
Green.
White girl with the green hair. That's awful.
Who that is? I don't think I know who that is.
Yes, you do. Oh gosh,
not.
I was every name escaping me today, but it's gonna come to me. But she got Grammys. She's a good. Her brother is her sound person, producer, and all kinds of stuff.
Is it the girl with the bows?
No,
they
she
used to have the
definitely
bows.
wouldn't have bows. But anyway, but let her do it, and it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Or let another white woman do it, and it's like they started it, and it's great. They got boxer braids now. That's got
like
this.
cursing.
Yeah.
You know, like cursing on platforms. People feel like, oh, you shouldn't curse, but if I'm white, it's okay. Because we have a ton of them that are like, they're filthy rich. They have a large following and they curse every other word. But for us, it's a problem if we curse.
So we're just held to a greater standard. So that's why I think it's important for us to even be able to deconstruct some of these things. We don't even realize that some of the things that we're holding ourselves to these standards that don't even align with our culture. They don't even align with our values. Like I'm making
and it's
myself
always they said. It's like, who is they?
Who is they? I'm getting this right here, this scar right here is from a relaxer. That's the last relaxer that I got.
That's how strong it was.
In 2011, I put a relaxer in my hair and it fell on my shoulder and burnt my shoulder. This actually was bigger, and I've had injections in it to bring it down. But the things that we go through so that we don't have to look like who we are so that we don't have to deal with the scrutiny of it. But I think even therapy can be a place where, well, definitely if you come to therapy with me, it's a place. It's a place where we learn to accept ourselves.
Yeah.
We learn to grow and we learn to embrace ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's why one of the biggest things I talk about is self-care and self-compassion, because we're just held to such a standard that and we live in this place of like people pleasing and perfectionism.
Yeah.
So definitely, if you're a people pleaser, this person who you create this trauma bond with, they love that. Because all you want to do is please the person that you with. You come with a genuine heart, and they are ready to just kind of absorb it and take advantage of that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they are. I think people are looking for that. They're looking for that. They need that. Gosh, she said so many good things. So many good things. So I really hope y'all are taking that in because, man, it's hard out here and you definitely need that person, a therapist preferably, that can walk you and guide you through the process. Because, like she said, you have people who don't even recognize that they have trauma. Like, they don't even recognize, they don't even know what it is. They have no idea. And it's like, girl, you've had the most traumatic experience I've heard so far. You know, it's like, wow. And I think we all experience it. I'm putting mine in a book. That's what I'm working on right now. Because when I first started going to therapy and me being in the field I was in, I'm like, I don't like this girl. No, I don't like you. That was me in therapy in my head. I was like, I don't like her.
You
She was
talking about
asking,
yourself, or you ain't
I
like the
was talking
therapist?
about my therapist. No. I was talking about my
She was
therapist.
going too hard.
And they already know I've talked to y'all about this. And no, I was just like, I don't like her. But by the
You
end
just
of
wasn't
it,
ready for what she was
I wasn't
bringing.
ready for it. She was asking me too many questions. She was giving me homework. And I was like, I don't want to do this. And so, long story short, we became really good friends or whatever. Like, I say friends, but we developed a great bond. But I was just like, but what I learned in therapy is that I was too hard on myself. That's one of the things I learned. I learned that I never stopped to celebrate. Once I accomplished something, I was like, oh, I'm on to the next thing.
You could have climbed a mountain and be like, yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
All right. But
That was me.
We have smaller ones. Like, sometimes I'm like, it doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It could
And
be the
that's what
fact
she
that you
told
got
me.
up 3 days in a row.
Yep.
And you whatever goal you set, you did it for a couple of days. Like, it doesn't have to be like some grand gesture, but it could be the grandest thing ever. We still like, no.
We like, oh,
Don't worry
it's not
about
good
it.
enough. And it's like she said it throughout this entire episode, is that we grew up like that. Like, we have to be tough. We have to accomplish these things. These things are normal. Like, you don't get a pat on the back for doing what you're supposed to do,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, no. Like, now I'm like, no, I'm going to celebrate this and then I'll get to what I get to next. Because it's like, man, I did that.
I did that.
So,
Right?
yeah.
Look at the stuff you did.
You're
Like, wait, I did
I'm
that.
that girl. So y'all need to start celebrating yourself more. That was another episode that I did about celebrating yourself after I had that epiphany in therapy, because I was like, you know what, you're so right. Like, I really have accomplished a lot. And especially when you can accomplish things and you don't use your trauma as an excuse, like, you learn how to work through your trauma and just still persevere through what you need to do and make it happen. That's something to celebrate.
It definitely is. But it's also equally something to celebrate when you even recognize the trauma.
Yes.
Well, a lot of times, you said something. Oh, Billie Eilish. That's her name.
Really?
You
I
know
have to
who
see a
Billie Eilish
picture
is?
of her. I don't know if I know. I
Oh.
heard the name. I would probably just have to see her
You
face.
gotta look her up. She is she
Look at me.
but she got
Looking her
green
up.
hair and it's cool now. But what I mean, I think she's a pretty amazing person. But anyway, but a lot of people minimize or that they deny that
Oh, here she
it's
go.
even happened. So you'll have people who
Okay.
had abusive parents, and they idolize that person. You'll ask them a question, you'll say, "Oh, well, what was your mom like?" And they'll be like, "Oh, my mom was great. She worked 8 jobs. Well, she worked 10 jobs. She worked 10 jobs. She took care of me and my siblings, and she made sure the house was clean, and she did all our laundry, and
Right.
she did this, that, and the third." It's like, ain't no way. It's
Right.
no way that one person, first of all, you turn her into a machine. And then you said that she did all these spectacular things and she never did not one thing wrong. We are all human. We have to allow ourselves space and grace to be able to not do everything to a standard of perfection that doesn't exist.
Yes.
But when somebody
Yes.
paints that kind of picture, that's also a flag to let you know that they're not being real with themselves.
Yeah. My husband and I joke all the time about, man, we all got some messed up we all got some messed up families. We all got something going on. But you love your family.
You do.
You know,
I mean, we
you
can
love
take
them.
all the strong stuff
Yeah.
from. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why our parents had to
Yep.
do. I mean, I tell people all the time. People are like, "Oh, well, women today,
Oh,
the
God.
women today, they don't stay like the women like our grandmothers." When my grandmother was property in 1976, when I was born, women were considered property. So she had no choice.
Right.
Property can't own property. So unless she
Right.
had a son who was old enough to also purchase her property, or a brother who was willing
Mm-hmm.
to purchase her property, she had to stay with her husband because he was the only one who could purchase property or do
Yeah.
anything. And I mean, it's a
It's
different
just
dynamic
different.
now.
It's different now, yeah, because we're out here getting it. Like women are out here getting it, and that's why it's important for men to really, really come to the table emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of women just aren't willing to. They're just not. They don't want to deal with that, especially when you're of a certain age. It's kind of like I'm already established. I've already done my work. I want you to come ready.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the dilemma that keeps a lot of people single these days because they feel like they want what they want
Yeah.
and they're willing to wait for it. And hey, who am I to bash you for waiting for it? But wait for it. I'm like,
Wait for
wait
it,
for
but
it.
also be willing to work with a person who is at, like, don't
Okay, see,
expect
now you
this.
about to open up a.
Don't
She
expect.
said work with.
Don't,
Y'all
no,
know
no,
how y'all feel about
I'm
that.
not saying
I'm
don't
done.
get y'all a bill. Don't get a builder bear. I'm not saying you need to build somebody, but what I'm saying is sometimes we
Mm-hmm.
have these expectations. Well, he has to do
Yeah,
this, and he has to talk like this, and he has to walk this way. We have to recognize where we are and
because
be
we're not
willing to,
perfect.
right, and be willing to meet somebody who is
Yeah,
able and available to walk at
yeah.
as high a standard as we're willing to walk
Mm-hmm.
with them. I'm not, but I by no means am I telling you to go out and settle for anything less than what you deserve. But I'm saying just examine the full picture of
Yeah.
what you willing to work with and what you want to build together and how y'all can build.
Yes. And the key word is together. If you can find somebody who's willing to work with you, like she said, and you guys work together, it works, guys. Trust me, it works. And nobody's going to be perfect. Everybody has their bad days. But at the end of the day, if you can come together and make it work, that's what marriage, if you're looking to be married, that's what it's all about. And just having a healthy relationship in general, it's just all about that teamwork and both people willing to work on themselves so they can be better for each other. Because we literally, my husband and I literally, we go to the gym and we do two different things. Like he goes and does his thing, I do my thing, because we both have different goals,
But y'all both at the
but we're
gym.
both at the gym. So I always use that as an example because it's okay. Because that's the number one question I get is like, how do you guys make it work, but you still have your own individual things going on? It's like we talked about this in the beginning. Don't ever enter a relationship solely dependent on a person. Like you have to kind of have your own way of thinking, your own way of doing things so that you guys can come together. Because it's easy to develop a trauma bond when you're like, oh, whatever you need me to do, I'm right here. Or like you're
Yeah.
just so like into this person that like we talked about, you forget about your friends, you forget about this and that. And it's like you lose who you are. You don't want to ever lose your own identity. So I wanna before we end the episode, I wanna get a couple more things from Lisa. I want to ask her about things that people should be doing to avoid finding people that they are easy to develop a trauma bond with.
Things people should do to
Avoid
avoid.
it, like signs or like things they should look for when they're dating or maybe when they're meeting people.
Wait, let me mention, because you said you lose yourself, because that we didn't mention that. That was
Okay.
one of the
Yeah,
seven
that was
steps.
one of the 7 steps, but I don't think we got to that one. Yeah.
That lost a sense of self, and there's also a resignation. Like you can be in a relationship with somebody who is abusive, and because they're so abusive, you're trying to avoid the conflict. So you
Mm-hmm.
just resign to whatever they say. You give in to whatever they say. So you know it's wrong. You know that it shouldn't be, but because you want to avoid the conflict of a situation, you give in. So you want to be mindful of those kinds of things if you're in a type of situation that you know that this is not a situation that's healthy.
Right.
You are in a more than likely you're in an abusive relationship, and if you're not sure, you want to examine it more. There's a power wheel.
Mm-hmm.
There are groups that you can go to for domestic violence, and there you can look up the power wheel, and it'll tell you different quadrants, different sections, different things that have to do with abuse that we don't always consider. I mean, in our society, I think most of us consider abuse as physical, but there's
Mm-hmm.
financial abuse, there's spiritual abuse, there is That's it. We said physical and emotional abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So things that people can do to
Yeah.
avoid being in these situations, right?
Yeah.
Is building up your self-esteem, is making sure that you are understanding your values. Look up your values. If you're not sure what your values are, what are your values? Because if love and family is a value to you, or relationships, you value family, you value connections, it's very easy to get into a situation where and then if you are a people pleaser, it's very easy to get into a relationship with somebody who can manipulate that, who
Mm-hmm.
can exploit those values in you. So be aware of what your values are, and then we feel bad.
Yeah.
We like, oh, I don't know how I got myself in that situation. Listen, it happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. There would not even don't worry about it, because it's a level of shame and guilt that comes
Yeah.
along with it, and we as friends and family members, we have to uphold the things that we one another are experiencing, and not try to disparage them for that, because that keeps people in those situations too.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you could ever fully avoid those situations, because just sometimes they happen, but you can be more so much aware that this type of thing, and actually you it's not necessarily that you can avoid it, because people who are attracted to you are
Mm-hmm.
attracted to you, but what you can avoid is prolonging any kind of conversations with this person, or extending relationships with this kind of person. And you can see those things when they come, so you'll be able to see people more clearly, and you'll be able to identify things that they're saying,
Mm-hmm.
things that they may be doing that are taking you away from your values, away from your goals, outside of your character. So really, it starts with your sense of self and building up yourself.
Yeah. Work on you. If you're in a season where you're single, and just work on you, and then when you do meet the right person, or you do enter a relationship, you will be your best self. You will be able to, like, kind of like she said, sometimes you can't avoid these things, but you will be more aware and kind of informed on what's going on, and you can see those signs when they do come. Because sometimes people hide their man, they hide it really well.
They
Let's
hide
just
it
say that.
good.
They hide it well. And so, yeah, I like to, for me, I'm just an analyzer. So I analyze people a lot. So right now, one of the things I'm enjoying is I don't know if you've seen it on YouTube. It's like the balloon pop or whatever, where the guy that come out, and there's like the men are lined up or women are lined up, and if they like you, they keep their balloon, and if they
I don't
don't, they can
know.
pop it. Oh, you gotta watch it. But the psychology behind that is just so. My husband's like, "Why are you so intrigued?" And I'm like, "Are you listening to what people are saying? Like what they're looking for, the types of questions they're asking, you know, they're what they're looking for physically, in a partner." It's just so intriguing to me how it's so many commonalities across the board, and I'm like, if people can really just be like on the outside, I wonder what people on the outside are thinking, but I'm like, if y'all could just see and hear yourselves, like some of y'all are asking for stuff that you're not willing to even bring to the table. So I think when you're in your single season and you're working on yourself, it's easy to identify, okay, what do I like? What do I want?
Yeah.
And how do I want to be treated, and how do I want to treat someone, instead of getting into a relationship and you have no idea what you want. Like you said earlier, you don't know your values, you don't know what this person is, just doing all types of stuff to you, and you don't see it. Everybody can see it but you. So those things, like making sure that you're informed, and making sure that you're going to therapy, and just doing all the things you need to do to be a healthy person.
Yeah, that's so important, because I think it's hard, because I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
even say self-love, because I thought it was too like narcissistic
Right.
at some point,
Because you're
or
making it all about you.
right.
Yeah.
And then not realizing, like, and I thought it was silly when you go on an airplane. I was like, they saying, put the mask on your face first and then put it on your kid. Like, that just doesn't make sense. My son next
You're
to me,
like,
he's
help
going to
somebody
breathe,
else.
right? While my baby, if my baby here, I'm going to put the mask on my baby. But
Mm-hmm.
if I faint, because I ain't got no oxygen, he
Your baby
can't get
ain't
no
gonna have a mama.
breath. So you have to put the mask on yourself first, get the air, and then you can
Then you
give
can
it
give into
to
somebody
others.
else. You can't pour from an empty cup. Okay, fill that cup up. Fill that cup up. Okay, three examples of self love.
Three examples of self love: boundaries. Um, I love to say expressing your own needs, expressing your needs. I mean, that's something that we struggle with,
Mm-hmm.
but expressing our needs, putting boundaries in place, and being clear, becoming clear about who we are, what we want, and what we want to see.
Yeah. And stand in that. And if you get with somebody, they're gonna make sure you stand. They're gonna make sure if they really love you, they're gonna make sure that you're loving on yourself. And that's
Mm,
something I learned in my marriage recently is that this person is making sure that I'm loving on me. Like, go do what you need to do for you. Like, go do. And I was
I
like,
love
no,
that.
but I need. And they're like, no, go do what you need to do for you. Like, if that's what makes you happy, if that's what you need to do, you need to go do that. And so I think when my husband started to make that a demand, like, you need to go do what you got to do for you, that's somebody that loves me and wants to see me happy and want to
Yeah.
see me love on me. And so I think when you're
And they're not threatened.
yeah,
He's not threatened. There's no
no,
intimidation. There's no
no.
insecurity about what you do when you do it. I love that.
Yeah, and so look for someone like that, somebody that's like pushing you. But those boundaries are important too, because also too we allow family, we allow friends and everybody to cross our boundaries, and we're just like getting, we feel it but we don't say anything.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, no, you need to do it for you. Like, if you need to take some time, you got to do that for you. So I love that. I love that she said that. So tell the people where they can find you.
Oh, you can find me on Facebook at Lisa and Blunt LPC. You can find me on Instagram at Lisa and Blunt LPC and TikTok at Lisa and Blunt
Oh, what do
LPC.
you do on TikTok?
I just do little snippets stuff.
Okay, that's cool.
I
I'm
show
saying, is
I
it like
show up for the people
personal or is it
sometimes.
like just
No,
based around your
it's
therapy?
all things that
Okay.
questions that people ask me
I
about
love
therapy.
that.
Yeah.
No, I love that because sometimes people can't find that online. You're gonna find everything, everything but somebody who's qualified that's giving you advice. So I love that.
You can look up
Go
like
look her up.
hashtag. I usually hashtag Black Therapist at TikTok. You'll find some really good stuff.
Okay, we're gonna have it up on the screen so y'all can go and follow her and find her. I'm gonna be following her so I can see. But yeah, also too, do you have anything coming up that you want to share? Anything?
I have a self compassion challenge coming up.
Okay.
So in September we're going to be doing a self compassion challenge and a journal that goes along with it. I guess I'll post it. So hopefully if you follow me on Instagram or social or Facebook, you will see I'll post that information there.
Okay. Okay. Any goals
Any goals?
for
So
the last part of this year? Because I know we're halfway through.
my goal for the last part of this year is to begin to. So I just started my private practice will be in effect for 1 year in August.
Well,
Woohoo!
congratulations.
Um,
I love ownership. Y'all know I do.
and I see clients in New Jersey and Texas, telehealth, both on through telehealth, and I take most major insurances too, and private
Awesome.
pay. So if you just want to pay privately, you're more than welcome to do that also.
Awesome. Look,
um,
all payments, all payments.
so my goal for the end of this year though is to begin to set up retreats. I want to start doing retreats,
Nice.
and yeah, so we're going to do a series of mini retreats next year, and then kind of build out from there. But my
I
goal
love it.
ultimately is to be in retreat somewhere to help us to get to different spaces and to remind us to just kind of take care of ourselves and
Yeah.
have that self compassion. Oh, so
Yeah.
I have a Black Joy group too. It's called Black Girl Joy on
Mhm.
Facebook. So you can feel free to join that group. The challenge will be in that group. So anybody who wants to join, as long as you can pass those questions, you
Don't
can
come in here
join.
acting crazy. Boundaries. You're gonna get kicked out. I love it. I love it. Oh, so lots of good things going on. I'm definitely gonna go and join the community. I'm gonna see if I can pass the questions, y'all. But yeah, go follow her. I'm gonna have all of her information up on the screen. If you're looking for a good therapist, she takes all forms of payment. Y'all heard what she said. If you got insurance, great. If you don't, you can still come and see her. Cause I think people do worry about that sometimes, but she takes both. Yeah, so I want to thank you so much for taking
Thank you.
time to come
You're
and chat
welcome.
with me and just sharing your expertise. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I do. I do want to say one more thing. I'm glad you asked
No,
that.
go ahead. I saw your eyes moving.
There is, if you're a person who is in a relationship, or you're in a relationship that is trauma bonded, and you're not sure, you're in an abusive relationship overall, and you're not sure what to do, you can connect with, uh, like Courtney said, connect with a therapist, or you can start doing some things too. Try to take walks.
Mhm.
Try to make sure you're doing some stretches. And these things don't, of course, they don't help immediately with the relationship, but they do help clear your mind a little bit and help you get a little bit more settled. So making sure you're taking walks, sometimes being out in nature. Sometimes you might have to get up a little bit early, like Courtney mentioned earlier. You get up a little bit. If your kids don't get up until 7, it might be a sacrifice to get up at 5. And if you're not a morning person, it might be a sacrifice to stay up until 12. I don't know what, whichever one works for you, but making sure you make that time for yourself. Also, making sure you there was something else that I wrote. Oh, regular exercise and a balanced diet. Making sure you're watching the kind of foods you eat. How is it affecting how? Because the foods we eat affect how we feel, affect how tired we are, affect how much energy we have. So making sure you're watching those things, and also regular exercise.
That is, look, I'm over here going like this because I literally been going to the doctor for the past 3 weeks because, yeah, your diet can really take a toll on everything. So that's definitely a good thing to remember, guys. Make sure you can't eat everything. You just can't. Courtney.
Tastes so good. It tastes so good here, though.
It tastes so good. I was going crazy, y'all. But yeah, I'm back in line because I'm like, I don't got time. But yeah, it can really just affect your mood though. I didn't realize that like you're so tired. I'm like, well, I want to take a nap. Like I need to
Yeah.
be working. So yeah, definitely take those all the things she said, write them down. Y'all know I always tell y'all to have y'all's notebook during episodes because she dropped a lot of great information. Make sure again you go follow her. If you're not subscribed to the podcast, go ahead and subscribe, share, and follow. Okay. If you're
Yeah, thank you.
listening, make sure you're following and so you can keep up with all the episodes that are being dropped. Okay. I love you guys and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.
Well, guys, that concludes our episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Allow Yourself Grace podcast. For additional information about today's episode, please click the link in the show notes below. To learn more about our Grace Girls community and other resources we have to offer, head over to www.allowyourselfgrace.com. Until next time, Grace Girls, I love you all, be blessed, and continue to strive for success.